In college world, you don't see that. But it's a great place. I love being in Fargo, North Dakota, and people always ask me when I go places like, why do you live there? And I always say it's the summers, but it really is the people. It's the Midwest. We have great support, great facilities. I'll talk a little bit about that today. And some of you guys are from that area. You've been up to Fargo. You've seen the support of NDSU, not just in football and basketball, but there's a great following for track and field. And we've had a lot of success. So today, my goal today is to kind of give you guys some ideas. I don't know if you had a chance to look at that presentation on the website, but when you speak at these things, everybody's looking for something, and I think that's part of track and field is stealing knowledge from other people. A lot of my warm-ups, a lot of my workouts came from, going to clinics, showing up at meets and watching people warm up, going to the U.S. championships and the trials and just seeing what really good athletes do, how they focus. And development is huge at NDSU, and I think development's huge in high school. So I'd say we get these kids 9 to 12 months out of the year. Unfortunately, you guys don't get them that long. So I look at what do they do when they're not in track and field? Do they play football in the fall? Do they play volleyball? Do they play basketball? Do they do it in a sports program? That's general prep to me in high school. It's getting them ready, getting them fit, so that when they come out for track, we can kind of just move on from there. We'll get started here. If you guys have questions at any time, raise a hand. I know some of this stuff may be similar to what you guys have heard before. Some of it might be new. Like I said, my goal is to give you guys some ideas and go from there. Are you guys good? Can you hear me in the back? Perfect. I'm not a big fan of microphones, so that's part of being a coach, I guess, right? So, what's that? Turn it up. There we go, we're maxed out now. All right, perfect. And part of my background is I've coached a ton of different events. I was a decathlete in high school or in college, high school. I did 3 sports. So my training might be a little bit unique. It might be a little bit different, but when you coach the vault, you coach the javelin, you coach the jumps, you coach short sprints, long sprints, hurdles throughout your career. When you become a head coach, you can kind of pick what you want to do and then make your assistants do everything else. So a few of them I think one of them's in here today. So, all right, we'll get started with this here. All right, so one of the things that I think is important when you're developing a training plan is your resources. Everybody has different resources, okay? An example for me is we live in Fargo, North Dakota, and if you haven't been to Fargo, it's called the Red River Valley, but the valley is about this deep. So trying to find hills, what do we do? I always talk about hill training. I think that's a very important part of our fall training. We run 12th Avenue Bridge. We can get 300 meters on it. It's about a mile from our facility. We jog out there, we warm up, and we run hills. So I think trying to find the resources, what do you have? What do we have available? Is it a 30-meter hill? Is it a 60-meter hill? Is it treadmills? Is it different things like that? So try to make use of what you have. We have the wind in North Dakota, so we'll run into the wind. That's resistance training. We have the wind in Minnesota. So tailwind, we got overspeed. So I think just finding resources and being optimistic about what you have. And then I think being a creative. I think that's part of being a track and field coach. Most of us are educators probably. We've learned how to teach, so just being creative and coming up with a training plan and keeping kids engaged. I think last year was a tough year for track and field because we didn't get outside for a long time. So how do you keep those kids engaged? How do you keep them out? Because kids want to compete. That's the biggest thing, is getting them to those competitions. So, and then find a training plan that works for you. And believe me, I've tried a number of different things. I've tried following some of the best 400, 800 coaches in the country, sprint coaches in the country, but they might be from the South. They might have outdoor tracks that they use year-round, so trying to tweak what I have or what my resources are to fit their program. So I think resources is huge. Big part of our program is warm-up and running mechanics. And if you guys want to copy this, I can certainly email this out. I think it was on, I don't know if it prints real well, but I like warm-ups. As you can see, I have like 2 pages of warm-ups here. We use a different warm-up for different days. Our warm-up green is more of a interval warm-up. So this is a warm-up we're gonna do. We're not gonna tap into the speed system on those days. We're gonna do something that just gets the body going. Warm-up gold is our sprint warm-up. So we're doing some fast leg stuff. We're trying to get ready to sprint. I think when kids start our program in the fall, we start the warm-up, and by the end of the warm-up, they think that's the end of the workout. So it takes them some time to realize I need to warm up, I need to do things to keep my body going throughout the day. Dynamic flexibility, hurdle mobility. I use a lot of this stuff for stretching, okay? None of these kids like to sit and stretch. I think we can all agree with that. If I tell a kid to stretch for 5 minutes, they're on their phone and they might get a minute of stretching. So we're gonna use hurdles, we're gonna use dynamic exercises to try to get some flexibility. I know stretching is important. I stress it on my kids at the end of practice, but we use a lot of this stuff, you know, we try to fool them, I guess, put it that way. Neuromuscular warm-ups, those are more of our meet day warm-ups, trying to get the body going. You know, we'll try to do those 4 hours prior to competition. So, and not say that you have to do stuff like that, and maybe you can't, because the kids goes, if we're in class all day and we have a Friday meet, their body's up and moving. If we're at a hotel and we have a 10 o'clock meet, we're gonna get up in the morning, we're gonna get moving at 6 a.m. and try to get ready for that 10 o'clock meet. Depending on the kid, depending on when they get out of bed normally, 6 a.m. might be a shock to them because they're competing at 10 and normally they're not out of bed by 11. So I think it's important on days you compete in the morning to get up early, get the body going. They'll be tired at the end of the day, but hopefully they get through the meet. Running mechanics. We do a lot of different running mechanics stuff. I like this running mechanics with a med ball because it's simple. A lot of people have med balls. We're just gonna hold the ball above our head. So we're gonna do basically a sprint warm-up, focusing on core, focusing on pushing the shoulders and everything up through the sky, okay? You can put something on your back, a stick. I cut some fence posts, like the chain link fence posts when they redid our outdoor track. So I cut a bunch of those and painted them, and they're different weights. The big thing is not getting too much weight, but they're gonna work the shoulders a little bit, but also we're just teaching posture. So I'll use running mechanics a lot in the fall. The biggest weakness I see in kids coming into college is their hip flexors. A lot of back leg mechanics. We're trying to get them to be up tall, pull through, push off the ground, teach them how to run right. So there's a number of different running mechanics stuff. Functional running, cool downs, mini hurdles, agility ladder. We'll use that on some days where we're doing some speed work. All right, acceleration development. I think this is big with any event, whether you're a 60-meter runner, a 3K, or a 2-miler, I guess, in high school. Like, you need to know how to accelerate. You need to know how to move the feet. So we'll do a lot of acceleration development. I don't base my training off of short sprint stuff. I've just found better luck with strength endurance type workouts, primarily because I keep my kids healthy that way. They all want to sprint every day of the week, but we do a lot of stuff throughout the year that's high volume, building strength endurance, and we'll tap a little bit into the acceleration development. So it might be on a sprint day, we're gonna do an acceleration routine, we're gonna do some wicket drills, and then we're gonna do an interval workout. So I'll talk a little bit about some of the different routines we do. Acceleration ladders, I don't know, the Tennessee ladders that maybe is what people refer to them as. Vince Anderson was at Tennessee, then he was at Texas A&M. It's just basically a stride pattern. I'll talk a little bit about that. Sled pulls, any type of resistance training is good. You don't have a sled, use a tire, throw a weight in there, put a rope on it. Seen all kinds of crazy things being from North Dakota. You can do them in the gym. You know, if you have a tire, you can put a towel around it, you can pull them in the gym. You know, 20, 30 meter type sled pulls. Basically work with the space you have. If it's 10 meters, I'm gonna load that thing up with a lot of weight. I'm gonna make them just pump and drive. Resistance starts, a number of different ways to do those. You know, they have all these bands now. We use bands, we kind of create a harness out of it and hold them, or you have a sled that they can pull over the starting blocks. And then wicket drill, something that we do pretty regularly throughout our training. You know, I have some videos and I'll explain that a bit. So a few different acceleration routines, and these aren't lengthy for my group. Primarily in my group, I have 400 meter runners. I have 800 kids they run the 200. They end up being pretty fast at the end of their career or throughout the year as they continue to develop. So just basically we're getting ready to sprint. This is on a sprint day. We're going to do a sprint warm-up. We're going to go to the acceleration routine, and everything builds up into working on 15, 20, 30 meters, and then like on acceleration routine number one, we're going to do a 4-point stance, and I have a video of this, and they're actually going to go through 30 meters of wickets. And for you guys that haven't done wicket drills, basically a wicket drill is I'm going to set them up at 6 feet, and they're going to go every hurdle 6 feet apart, or 5 feet, or whatever it is for that athlete. And they're going to learn to run tall, and they're going to learn to run fast. So you watch them run beside the hurdles, and then you put them over the hurdles, and all of a sudden you're like, dang, that kid knows how to run. Because they start picking up their knees, they start putting their foot down. So that's something, like I said, has been a great tool of mine for our group. So this is just, our track facility is not connected to any athletic building, which is awesome. Nobody comes over to our building ever. So if I want to paint lines on the track, I paint lines on the track. So I have acceleration ladders just painted 30 meters worth just in a corner on our practice lanes. They don't interfere with any of our competition stuff. You can use tape. I've used blinds before, old blinds, and put duct tape over them. Cones, if you want to move them. I painted our outdoor track with little dots on the lane line from a random spot that we don't do starts during a meet. So this is just a falling start, and what she's working on is trying to drive past the white lines and push back at them. Probably not the greatest video quality, but. So she's starting on what I call phase one from a standing start. So we're just trying to teach the push and drive on that. And then we're going into a 3-point stance here on the right side, doing the same thing. And then we advance on to a 4-point start. I like to do a lot of things not in the blocks, because half the time, and we run a lot of high school meets, and I'll watch a kid come up to the blocks, and they're looking at them, and they're like, that kid ran pretty fast, I'm just going to hop in his blocks and use his. So we do a lot of things teaching kids how to push. And when you don't have a pad, you don't have blocks, I think your start's sometimes better. And that's something I learned. I had a former football player that had a 5th year left. He was training for the combine. He came out for track, and I'm excited because I got a football kid finally. That he should be fast, right? And we immediately started doing some things. I'm like, he looks really good, like doing the 3-point, doing the 4-point stuff. And we got in the blocks, and I'm like, he went from like a 10-5 guy to an 11-5 guy like that. Like he could not use the blocks. So we continued to work on trying to get in the blocks. Finally, he ran indoors. I don't think he scored at our conference meet, unfortunately, but outdoors, we're at Azusa Pacific, and I was like, hey, don't use the blocks today in the 100. And he looks at me like I'm crazy. Like, there's no rule in the NCAA that you have to use blocks. And he PRs by like 3/10 in the prelims. And then in the finals, he drops another 2/10 off his time. And then the next week he goes to pro day and never comes back. So we just got him where we wanted him, and then he's gone. But that was one of those things like, wow, you don't need all this fancy stuff to be fast. And he hadn't really used the blocks. He was taught to he was a football player. And that's primarily what he did. So he helped teach me something. All right, this is a little hard to see. So these are our stride ladders. This is what's painted on the track. So this is what you're looking at here is the yellow. My starting point's always 0. So the easiest thing to do is put 0 at the start line, and that's where your foot is all the time. Doesn't matter who they are. Everybody starts at 0. Some kids are going to be on a 3-1 ladder, which is 3 feet 1 inch to the first step, and then we're at 6 feet 8 inches to the second step. So we map this out. You don't have to put it all the way out through 120 some feet. If you're putting cones down for 8 steps or 6 steps, this helps them to learn whether they're overstriding out of the blocks or out of their stance, or they're understriding. So it helps teach them drive and push. If you have questions on it, let me know. I can certainly send you. I have an Excel formula that I use. So First stride's 210, second stride increases 6 inches, and then 6 inches, 6 inches, 5, 4, and all the way down to about 180 feet, and then we're at 0. Basically, when they get to 80 feet, their stride length should stay the same till the end of the race, in the 100 meters, 60 meters, and so on. So that's where the wickets come in very valuable. We figure out where they're at, how many inches they're at, or how many feet they're at their top speed, and then we set these wickets down, which I'll get to that in a bit here. Questions on the stride ladder, men's stride ladder? You know, some of the guys might be on the girls' ladder. This is 3-3 is probably a pretty good ladder for girls. 3-4, 3-6 is a good starting point for guys. When we do stuff in the fall in our flats, I might have them on a different ladder. And like I said, we'll warm up. We'll do 6 by acceleration ladder, and then we'll get into the workouts. We're always tapping into a little bit of acceleration development on certain days. All right, so wicket drills. I use metric because it's easier for me when I'm marking it on a tape measure. If I'm going to go 2 meters, I can just go 2, 4, 6, and so on. Or if I'm going to go 1.9. But this is in feet and inches, so sometimes you got to use your math skills. So phase 1, 5 feet. I'm going to set them up 5 feet apart. Okay. When we do the wicket drills, we're always running in about 20 meters. So it might. I always say start in the same spot. And then if you felt like you were long getting into the wicket, the first one, move up a little bit. If you felt like you were chopping, then you need to move back a little bit. It takes them a little while to get comfortable with running fast into, I use 6-inch mini hurdles. And they've worked really well for us. You could use tape, you could use lines on the track for them, but the 6-inch mini hurdles, we can set them up, take them down every day. Some kids are at 6'9", some kids are at 5'9". It really kind of depends. Most of my group's on the same. I'm not going to set up 7 ladders. I don't have time to do that. I don't have enough hurdles to do that. So I'm setting one up for the girls right now at 2 meters, which is about 6 feet 6 3/4 to be exact. And the guys are at 2 meters 20, probably 7 feet, somewhere around there. So we started at 190, 180 with the girls on the metric, which is probably 6 feet or around that area, and the guys, we start at like 2 meters in the fall when we're doing flats. And they should feel choppy. They should feel like they're putting their foot down quick. So we're trying to, kids are so used to overstriding that when you try to teach them to run upright and put their foot down under their hips, it feels funny. And so my goal is for them to increase their speed throughout the wicket drill. So we're covering about 50 meters of sprinting and then 20 to 30 meters of deceleration, which I feel is important. I always explain deceleration is more important because the more you do this, you always hear kids doing this. And then the next day, my shins really don't feel great today, coach. You know, so well, let's quit stomping on them. Let's continue to run that extra 30 meters to help with the shin injuries. So designed to allow the athletes to learn how to run tall, teach foot strike under your hips, and correct overstriding. Again, I thought these would blow up bigger, but you can kind of see, I put yellow hurdles so you guys can kind of see there in orange. So, and I still have kids that struggle like adjusting to that first hurdle. That's going to be your biggest challenge right away. If they come in slow, it's going to look boundy and slow. If they come in fast and they hit it right, you're going to see them have to cut down and turn over. I'd rather have them too close than too far apart to teach proper running mechanics. And the one on the right here. So like today, we're in the middle of our indoor season, so we're not doing a ton right now. Today they did a sprint warm-up, did an acceleration routine by 2 reps instead of 3, where we finish into the ladder, and then this group did two 350s, and then they did some 100-meter flush-out runs. So it's a pretty short day, but we're trying to get that speed work going right away. You guys even see that? These other ones might be a little bit better. I don't know if this is going to work. So we got a guy that loves track and field. He's a PhD student on campus, and he loves taking photos. So we talked him in track and field. You can beg and plead and borrow and steal, right? I think that's what the terminology is for it. So we asked him to come take some photos one day of practice, and the guy shows up 2 or 3 times a week. Now he's got a drone. So at our meets, he flies a drone, and he's pretty good at the 60 hurdles, the long jump, triple jump. So the other day he was in, he got a new drone now. Now he's got 3 batteries, so he can go like probably 2 hours. His other battery only lasted a half hour and he was charging it. So we're gonna try to do some live feed. But these are some drone footage. I'm hyping him up, so this better work. If you go to Reese's Hurdle one, he's got some pretty cool videos of that. Reese told me how to do this. He's in here. There we go. It's streamed, so it might not be the greatest quality. Yeah, it's probably not going to come across real great off my phone. But you can kind of see a little bit better here. Maybe it's good to watch it in choppy, slow motion. Isaac's a Hastings, Minnesota kid that started at University of Mary and now has been with us the last 2 years. That's a kid that was going there. Anyways, we'll get out of this and go back to the presentation. Any questions on wicket drill stuff or acceleration? All right, so another big part of our program or my training is circuit training. We do a lot of circuits in the fall. It's total body stuff. There's some plyometric stuff. There's some recovery stuff. So if this link doesn't work for you guys, I don't know if it'll take me to the page. I'm gonna have to do the same thing here. So they're extremely hard to see, but you guys have a link if you go to the website. So we have some cardio-based circuits. So like I said, in the fall, I love circuit training because it just keeps them moving, keeps them going. We're gonna do our warm-up, we're gonna do some flexibility in there, and then I'm just gonna go through one of them here, 4 by 60 meter strides with 20-second rest. And then we're gonna do some burpees, and then we have a 35-second run. I just put a time limit down. We train on a football field in the fall on turf, so we're trying to get off of the hard surface. Instead of having to put cones up, we just run the perimeter of the soccer football field. We'll do push-ups. So basically, in between some of these intervals and reps, we're doing some sort of core. We're doing some sort of plyometric. It just is. I feel like it really gets kids in shape, and I use the term fit all the time with my athletes. I'm like, we talk about fitness, we talk about being fit. So total body stuff I think is great. The other, there's some plyometric based circuits. So this might be more on a speed development type day where we're doing not as much running, we're doing a little bit of bounding, we're doing some jumping, we're trying to do it when our legs are somewhat fresh. But usually I'll put a 5-minute run in at the end just to make them run a little bit. And then recovery-based circuits, which are probably more important than anything we do, is recovery. So like our training plan, and I'll talk a little bit about that, is in the fall we're going Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then Tuesday, Thursday, we're doing some sort of a recovery body maintenance type circuit. So they're doing something. And when it says recovery, it doesn't mean stay in your dorm and not come to practice. As we get further into the season, it might become an option of I'm going in the pool, I'm going on the bike, I'm going on the elliptical, I'm going on the Boost treadmill or the Ultra G if you have access to one of those. I'm doing something that's not weight bearing. So recovery has been huge with some of these circuits. It's when we run on recovery, we're talking like 60%. Really hard for kids to go 60%. If I tell them to run a 40-second 200, they're used to running 30-second 200s. Really hard for them to get to 40 seconds. And then some resistance circuits. So these are where we're putting more of our sled pulls into a circuit. So we're doing 2 by 40 meter sleds with some burpees, some push-ups, maybe some agility in there. And then with maybe some med ball throws on some of them. And then I have full body circuits in here, which is probably more of a summer type training that I send to the kids. So some kids can't get in a weight room in the summertime. Some kids don't want to get in a weight room ever. But if they do some sort of these things, they're going to get fit. They're going to stay strong. So those full body circuits, I think, are pretty good. So, and this is, I know your guys' preseason's way shorter than mine, but these are some things we use in season too. I just think it's good to sometimes change it up. You know, try to, hey, we're doing some intervals, we're working hard today, but we're only at 75%. So maybe we're going to do a circuit where we're going to do some full body stuff. We're going to do some burpees, we're going to do some crunches, speed skaters, and then maybe run a 200. And then next time we're maybe going to do push-ups, pull-ups, those types of things. I found kids really struggle with pull-ups these days. We don't do the fitness challenge anymore, obviously, where they have to do a pull-up. Interesting story about that. A girl that's having a great senior year, Nell Graham from Triton High School. So her freshman year, I used to test them in the fall, and pull-ups was in there, and I think she did one, and she walked away like super embarrassed. And so like every Tuesday, Thursday, Nell was in there doing pull-ups. That's just why, that's not why she's successful, but that is a big reason why like she's running so well now. Not because she did pull-ups, but just like her determination is like, I don't want to suck at pull-ups. But it's funny because most of them come in and they can do 1 or 2 or 3, and then they get up to where they might do 15, 16 in a row. And we're doing 3 times as many as possible, twice a week. And not all of them are doing this. Is kind of on their own. So, but interesting story of her. I just remember because upperclassmen girls were just hammering out these pull-ups, and they were just kind of looking. I'm like, holy cow, I can't even do one of these things. Hills pay the bills. That's what I always tell my kids. So I love doing hills. There's so many different ways you guys can do this. Treadmills, we use a lot of those. Obviously, Fargo, North Dakota's flat. It's not nice out right now. If I want them to do some hill training, we have a couple treadmills that we've had built, some woodways that'll go faster, they'll have a higher incline. The ones that I've bought from commercial, like a used treadmill, if you figure out how to type the code in, you can change what those things go to on some of them. So at the health club, it might only go to 12 miles an hour, but I can get it to go 16 now by just redoing some of the numbers. Or I can get it to go to 15 on an incline instead of 10. So we have probably 4 pre-core treadmills that I bought, used, or got donated from the wellness center that I'll call souped up. And we used to run hills on those things, just beat the crap out of them. Every year I was putting money into them. And then we bought a couple woodways, had them, it just invested in something that was a little bit better. And I'm probably knock on wood here, but I haven't had any issues with those treadmills. But like I said, I have 150s, I have 200s, I have 300 hill type on-ramps. I mean, I don't think you want to be running on a on-ramp, but just, bridges. If it's a 100-meter hill, we're just going to rest less. We're going to jog down. We're going to try to figure out a way to get the kids tired. The things we're focusing on hills is drive and push. We're not just running to run, I always tell them. When we go there, Friday mornings, we have practice 6:30, 7 a.m. every Friday in the fall, and then we lift at 9. So we meet, we jog out to the hill, and then they put in the work, and then it's time to hit the weight room. So it's become kind of tradition for my group to go Friday mornings, and the kids really like it. Some kids have class conflicts. Sometimes we got to go earlier. Sometimes they go later in the afternoon. But that's the one day I get my whole group together, and I feel like we have a lot of energy. Kids are cheering each other on. Some of the other groups come on those hill days, and I think it's fun. But I don't know if they like it so much. So there's been a lot of puke on that bridge and over the side of the bridge. All right, preseason training plan. So like I said earlier, we go Monday, Wednesday, Friday with our days that we're actually doing something other than body maintenance type stuff. So Mondays is a cardio type day. We're gonna do some intervals. This is your typical 8 to 10 by 200, depending on the group. 75%, 90-second rest, 60-second rest. I have a bunch of sample workouts I'll go through here. And then we're gonna lift weights on Mondays. Mondays, my group lifts in the morning. I love the mornings because we get 2-a-days in. They come in and they lift in the morning, and then they come back for practice at 3 o'clock. So it's my way of kind of controlling maybe They have to get to bed early. They have to get their studies done because they know they have to be up at 6 a.m. on Monday, Wednesdays, and then Fridays we're rolling at 7 again. But we used to trade off. The groups used to trade. Nobody wanted the morning workout, but our weight group size is probably 70 when you take the sprints, jumps. Well, the jumps go Tuesday, Thursday, so we're talking the multis, pole vault group, the sprints, hurdles, and then my group. So trying to get all those kids in the weight room at the same time is near impossible. So we'll try to break it up into 2 groups. Better coaching opportunity for our strength coaches. So, but anyways, we used to trade it off, but then one year the girls were like, hey, we love the mornings. Could we continue to lift in the mornings? And then when the guys started coming with me, they had to lift in the morning too, which there was a little more complaining there. Tuesdays, 400, 800 kids, we're gonna put a little bit of volume in, 25, 30-minute run. My 800 kids aren't cross-country kids, so some of the workouts that I'm gonna show you today are maybe that kid that's an 800 runner that played basketball. Doesn't like to run more than 2 miles. Okay, we're gonna try to figure out a way to train that kid so that they like track, they run a fast 800, and they don't have to go for a 6-mile run until they get to a certain level. I think base training is important, don't get me wrong there. My best 800 kid took me 2-3 years to get him to do a 10-mile run. Just wasn't, he wasn't a cross-country kid. He played football, played basketball, but his last couple of years we started increasing volume because I felt like he was ready for that. Wednesdays are acceleration development and then circuit day. As I said, I call it circuit mania. Depends on what we're doing that day. Thursday's more of our recovery day, cross-train, swim, bike, jog, flexibility. How do you feel, basically? You know, communication's huge with these kids. They need to be able to communicate with me how their body's feeling because I have no idea. And typically freshmen might be going at 80, 85%. Your higher level kids might be going at 70%. So that's why I do a lot of things on percentages. We have a chart. Here's my 200 PR. If I'm supposed to be at 75%, I have to run 33s. These guys are running 30s. If I run 30s, now I'm at 80 something percent. So trying to explain to them that if you train at a higher percentage than your body's capable of doing on recovery days, you're probably not going to make it through the year. You're going 85% when everybody else is 75%. So trying to, freshmen, I mean, depending on the level they come in at, but freshmen are doing something a little different than juniors and seniors. Training age is huge. Percentages has worked really well because when I put a time frame down, if I go 30 to 33, they want to run 30. Everybody wants to run 30. So trying to explain to them, like, here's group 1, here's group 2, here's group 3. And then also teaching the young kids how to pace. We have some really good pacers, we have some really bad pacers. If I want a fast rep, I typically take one of my best freshmen, I say, hey, you're leading the 200 today, and that kid just takes off. And everybody just looks at me and shakes their head, like, now we have to run fast, because nobody wants to get beat by the freshmen. But just teaching them rhythm, teaching them pace. And then Friday, speed endurance, we're gonna do the hills. And if we're not doing hills, we're maybe doing something on the treadmill, or maybe doing something 1, 2, 3s on the track. In-season training plan, I think for high school, we're gonna use, or you guys are probably gonna use meets as training days early on. We're not gonna try to, I know maybe we gotta qualify for the elite meet, things like that, but an opportunity to get on a track. I might have a kid do 3 events some days because we have an opportunity to race. It's a nice day. That might be training day. So we typically do a Monday flush out day. We're doing some intervals. I don't do a lot of speed work on Mondays. I find kids sit around on Sunday after a competition on Saturday. Had more injuries trying to do too much speed work on Mondays. So we do some 200s. We might do some 3s at 75%. I cut their rest down if I feel like they can handle it. And then we'll lift weights. Our weight training in season is more based on power. We're trying to move the bar fast, speed and power. Tuesday, body maintenance circuit, 4-8 group, we're still putting in some volume, depending on who they are. Wednesday, acceleration, development, speed, endurance. Now we're getting 2 days out of, or 3 days out of a meet. So like I said, our workout on Wednesday this week wasn't very high volume. It was fast, and they should be recovered by Saturday. So we're starting to get to that point. I told them this might be one of the last like hard puking workouts they do, because next week we compete Friday, Saturday, then we travel to Boston the following week. So we're starting to get into our real competition side of things. So just fine tuning and keeping them healthy is really what we're doing the last 2 to 3 weeks of our indoor season. And then Friday, our pre-meet, I use that as kind of acceleration too. We're gonna do some starts, we're gonna do a sprint warm-up. Depending on what event they're doing, we'll run some curves, we'll do some relay exchanges. Indoors obviously, we just do the 4x4. So we're just learning how to pass the stick. You know, trying to explain to these kids that have been running 4x4s their whole life that like, when you take a split, it's the finish line. So like if you don't get out, and the kid runs you over, your split's gonna be worse, and their split's gonna be bad. So trying to move the baton. We talk about moving the baton at a constant speed. You don't want that thing to slow down. So similar to like you guys probably do with the 4x1 type stuff. But then you always get a kid where you're like, you gotta get out, and they just take off like 20 meters before the kid gets there, and the person coming in's eyeballs go about this big. Some sample preseason intervals. I think these are good for anybody. I don't think this is college material. I think it's good workouts. It's just paces. You know, if I have a kid that's a 48-second quarter miler versus a 50-second quarter miler, we're just going to run a little bit different time. I like 200s. Sometimes we'll get up to 16 to 2200s with 800 guys. It just depends on what kind of volume they can handle. So Mondays, we'll do all these are the interval warm-up on the left side. 8 to 10 by 200, 75%. Like I said, you can look, I can send you a chart, but you can Google a pace chart. And it's been a good tool for me to use. 2 by 3 by 200. Now we're cutting the rest to a minute, running about the same pace, but then I'm giving them 4 minutes in between. So now they're getting a little bit less rest, but we're trying to still run 28 to 30 on the guy's side, maybe 33 to 34, 32 on the girls, depending on what their 200 PR is. And then the 150s we use as, if we're outside, we're gonna go a little bit faster. If we're inside, I might do 130s because I can get a curve in a straightaway 130 meters. So we're just gonna build into it, and then I wanted to continue to pick up the pace as they get through 150 meters. So part of it is trying to teach them to finish and not slow down the last 10 to 20 meters. So that's what when your legs are a little bit fatigued, we're gonna do some 150s, so it's kind of like a tempo. I'm gonna increase the speed every 30 meters. And I should be probably 80, 85, 90% towards the last part of it. Because you'll see a lot of times they'll start out fast, and then they look at their watch and they're running too fast, and they slow down. So we do a lot of things on trying to hit the pace. 3 by 300, 3 by 200 meters. I jokingly call this the Jake Levine workout. One of my 400 guys that was always hurt. So I think he did this workout probably 100 times. But it was something that kept him healthy. And it was just short recovery. We're running at 75%. Sometimes we get up to 80. On the other side, we're doing a little more sprint stuff. 3 by 3 by 150. This is something this year I was able to do outside because we had a really nice fall. And it was way more valuable than on our indoor track. They were running, I was making them get after it a little bit. It was a pretty tough day. But it was probably one of the best workouts I think we did this year so far. And then the 3-2-1s. We're gonna run a 3, run a 2, run a 1, and then we'll rest 5 minutes. We're gonna rest 5 minutes in between each rep, and then go right into the second set. And then if you're looking at your 400, 800 type kids, they may run some 200s, but if you're trying to bump somebody up, like I said, they don't run cross country, they don't have a lot of volume, so we're gonna kind of ease into it a little bit. So we're gonna increase the 200s to 12 to 16. We're gonna go 3 by 3 by 300 instead of 3 by 2 by 200 or whatever it is I had on the other one. And then we'll do some jog recoveries. So jog recovery for some kids is moving, some of it's like this. Just tell them, go as fast as you can to recover in that period of time. And as they get used to it, you'll start to see them pick up the jog a little bit. 6-4-2-4-6, also known as soul crushers, depending on how you run it. But the goal is to set a pace. If I'm gonna run 30 seconds for every 200, that's what I want. I want a 1:3600, I want a 60-second quarter, I want a 30-second 200, and I'm gonna go back up. That's the hardest part. Coming down's easy, going back up is pretty challenging. Depending on what your 800, it's not 800 pace by any means, but we start running faster with faster kids. The girls might run 35 seconds, or maybe they're running 40 seconds. Don't tell them we call it soul crushers or they won't want to do the workout. It's not that bad. And then 2x500 at 800 pace. I think this is a great workout. It gets those kids used to feeling like we'll do 400s on pace, but I think 500 it's just a little bit more obviously, and it gets them a good feel for like what is it at 500 meters. I have to make a decision. What am I going to do the next 300 meters? You know, as an 800 runner. At 300 meters, I would tell the kids you have to make a move, whether you're staying on pace or you're accelerating at 300 meters, because at that point that's where the race gets really hard. And then we finish with a couple 200s, easy, I call them, just flushing out the legs. 2x600, same thing. We're going to build up a little bit of volume here, and then we're going to do 3x300 with 1 minute rest. So this is 60%. This is where it's hard. Our time is 50 seconds, we'll say, for the guys, and 60 for the girls, running basically a 300 meter. And then we come back with a fast 250. And we may build that up to a 350, just really depends on the time of year. So again, we're trying to get some lactic acid in the legs, we're trying to get that fatigue, and then we're trying to run fast after that to build the endurance. And then 2x5x400 meters at mile pace. We don't run a mile, but I think it's important for them to put in some volume on certain days. 90-second rest, 5 minutes between sets. So different than what you would probably see an 800 miler and up do. Their recovery time is probably less. You know, that's about the biggest thing I've seen when I look at what some of our distance coaches have done. I'm like, man, you guys want to recover 2 minutes? My guys are still laying on the ground. You know, their recovery's not there because they're not putting in that cross country season, not putting that volume in the fall. So I'm giving them a little more rest, and we're getting more out of it. You know, Jacob Rodine, who was our school record holder now in the 800, his second year, I sent him with the 800 guys for a workout one day, and he made it through about a third of that thing. And then in the weekend, he beat them all. And then those guys were not happy. Like, he can't make it through the workout, and we're trying to explain to them, like, he's a totally different 800 athlete than you guys are. But I remember just I didn't pawn him off on our distance coach at the time, but I remember him coming around the track, just, you know, Jacob led every single workout in my group. He was 20, 30 meters behind and white as a ghost behind these guys. And I was like, hey, you're done. It's enough. But just, you know, different energy systems. Some in-season workouts. Obviously, my in-season's a little longer, so maybe some of this stuff is things you go into right away when you get on an outdoor track. You know, depending on where your kids are, you have 5 days of practice or 6 days of practice, and we're already heading to a meet. So I'm not going to go through all these. Some of the ones I like, there's a sled workout in here with some 100s at the end. The 2x450, I like that workout. A lot of my guys can handle more volume than 400 meters. I would say I have a group of 400, 600 type kids. But if they're not in that group, then we're doing a 350. So if they're more of a 2-4 guy, we're going to do the same workout. We just do 350 meters instead of 450. And then I talked about finishing workouts. The 200 meter cut downs is designed so at 100 meters you hit the same time on your first rep as your last rep. So if I'm trying to run 26, I want to hit 13. Okay. The next rep I want to hit 13 and I want to cut it down a second, and then 2 seconds, and then 3 seconds. Okay. The first time they do this workout, the first 200 is at 24 all the time. Girls are probably they're always way too fast, so trying to learn pace. But once they learn, hey, don't go out hard, like hit 13 and then accelerate. It really helps them towards the end of their races, finishing races. The hardest part of the race is the last 80 meters, I always tell them. You see it in every single event, whether, well, not the 100, or the 200, but 400 on up. You know, if you can be consistent and aggressive the last 80 meters, you're going to win a lot of races, or you're going to hunt down a lot of people, you know, down that straightaway. This one here is more of your shorter sprint, the warm-up gold 4-time acceleration ladder, 2 times 60 meters, 2 times 80 meters, 2 times 130. We're running fast on this day. Our rest is short, 2 minutes, 6 minutes. My group really likes when they see this on the workout sheet because it's a short day. And then 400, 800 intervals. We're just adding some volume to them. Some of these are the same as of their preseason things, but we're just maybe going a little bit faster. With the 800 guys in season, I do a lot of 450s with my group. I like that workout. We try to come through 400 at our 800 time, and then just kind of try to hammer the last 50 meters. So it gives them an idea where they need to be at 400 meters. And I think, you know, if you have a kid that's trying to break 2 minutes in the 800 and they're coming out in 60, it's gonna be pretty tough for that kid to break two minutes. Very rarely can they negative split or equal split. So what do you feel comfortable? Can you go out in 50 and come back in the 62? Can you go out in 57 and come back in the 60? You know, it kind of trying to figure out what's comfortable for each kid. You know, like some of our guys, they want to go out in 50 and just try to hang on, okay? And that's just the way they race. Sometimes some other guys like to go out in 54, and then they try to hunt people down at the end of the race. So it's just trying to find the right fit for each kid. And then we get to 1x450 as we get closer to the competition or championship season. One of the hill workouts, and I skipped over it, but one of the things I did last year, we hadn't had an outdoor track for a number of years. What we did, it was 20-some years old, it was rock hard, very fast, not a great training track. Well, the last couple of years, 2 years ago, our outdoor facility, as you see in the background, is completed. So we would go out to the hills, we'd run 3-2-1s up the hill. So we do 2 sets of that, and then they're supposed to jog back, but a lot of them walk back to the track, which is probably like a 10-minute walk, 15-minute walk. So now we got full recovery, and we'd put on our vapor flies or our spikes, and I would have them do a 3-2-1 on the track in the fall, which I typically don't do, but I found it was a really good workout for them. The strength coach probably wasn't real happy on Friday when they showed up at 9 with jello legs, but trying to incorporate some hills and some track workouts has been very valuable for me. I would use the hills more in the spring if I could. We just don't get outside. You know, this year maybe. We don't have much snow. You know, we might be outside in March and we can get on the hill. So we use the treadmill a little bit, but it's not like running up the hill. Treadmill, when we run on the treadmill, we run hills, it's hard because we're gonna put that thing at 14 miles an hour, 10 incline, and you have to run for those 30 seconds. So you find that those days, who's working hard on the hill outside, the treadmill can be pretty challenging if you don't do it right. There we go, treadmill hill training. So some of the options we do, I would say 8 to 12 on the incline. I give the kids a lot of treadmill workouts over the holiday break, and I just tell them, figure out what you have. If your treadmill goes to 10 miles an hour, crank the incline up. Run longer. You know, if you got one like ours, run 30 seconds. So work with what you have. 8 by 30 second runs, you know, we're looking at 12 incline, various speeds based on the individual. 45 second, 30 second, 15 second runs. This is kind of 300, 200, 100 type stuff. I'm just putting times on them. 10 by 20 second, now we're gonna increase the speed and rest. So when I do this one, I might start at an incline, and as we get towards the end of it, we're gonna decrease it. I never run flat, maybe 5, maybe 4 degrees, and we're starting to move a little bit faster. But we're still not like all out sprinting on the treadmill. So basically, I just take some of our track workouts and try to put them on the treadmill. And then sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. I think one of the biggest things trying to develop a training plan, this is what I do. I start from the last week of the season and I just work back. I have a 156-day season, so that takes me to October 18th most years. And then I have a preseason prior to that. So if you go to the state meet and you work back, you guys are probably dealing with like a 90-day season maybe?
14.
Or less? How many?
14 weeks.
14 weeks, okay. So it's trying to work back. I like to follow speed, strength, work capacity, rest. So first week we might tap into a little bit extra speed stuff, shorter things during the week. Week 2 is more of our sled pulls, hill run type thing. Work capacity, we're probably doing an extra interval workout. 4th week is a rest week. Typically I try to plan this off a big competition the next week. Coming off a rest week, we're typically seeing some pretty good things. And that's kind of, a bell kind of goes off in their head like, oh, rest is good. I don't need to go and hammer all the time. So that's just what I do. Some people do 3 weeks. Some people do seven, or not 7 weeks, but you know, like 14-day cycles, things like that. So just like I said, it's kind of having a plan and kind of following it is great, but like if I took my plan and it was in a bubble, there'd be about 50 different arrows going all these different ways for all the different kids and what they need. So trying to find what's right for every kid sometimes is challenging, but trying to make adjustments I think is important. Strength training, preseason we're doing 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, mainly focusing on strength, power, a little bit of speed. Some weeks we'll go Mondays and Fridays as we get into in season. When our volume increases on the track, we're going to maybe do a little bit less in the weight room. And then in season, we're doing 2 days typically. If it's a short week and we compete on a Friday and we're traveling, we'll only get a Monday left in. We're focusing on power and speed. So in a high school setting, I don't know what the strength and conditioning looks like for most of you guys, but I think a big summer of lifting for kids is important. I think that's where kids are going to gain some of their strength. But now kids are busy with year-round sports, so when's a good time to lift? And 2 days a week, we might be in there for 20 minutes. We go in there and we'll bench, maybe do some power cleans, do some push jerk, maybe an auxiliary lift, and we're out of there. So we're continuing to keep the volume or the weight up, but the volume goes down. So it might be just 2 reps, 3x2 or something like that. Just really depends on the type of year. And then, like I said, a big thing for us is development. And I think that's the same at the high school level. And I just highlighted some of our kids, just some of the development. And really it's buying into the system, because there's so many different ways to train out there. And I know there's all these different philosophies. I think it's finding what works for you. So some of the kids we've had, Rose Jackson was Wilmer, Minnesota girl. Probably one of our top athletes that's come through the program. Pretty good high school athlete, 18.6, 12.56 in the 100. She may have run faster than that. I couldn't find anything else. And 25.65. Rose had a really good freshman year. And then her sophomore year, I was trying to sprint her too much. We kept having hamstring issues. Junior year, we started figuring things out. Her senior year, she just was on another level, 20 feet 9 in the long jump, 11.57 in the 100, which she ran twice that year at our conference meet. Because I just didn't like to do a lot of hundreds with her, obviously, because of the hamstrings. 23.57 in the 2, and then she would regularly split like 51, 52 on her 4x4 that made it to the national meet that year. But she was a heptathlete, came in, wanted to do that. Lexi Woods was a girl from small town, North Dakota, Parshall, North Dakota, around 56, 76 in high school, and then just continued to progress throughout her career to a 52, 99. Lexi's the type of girl that would run faster at our track than any big facility. She loved competing at home. And if you get a good day in Fargo, you're usually going to have some pretty good times with the way our track's set up. Nell Graham, I talked about her earlier. She's a unique individual. She's made me develop a 400-meter multi-training plan. She's our best 400 runner. But she just set the school record last weekend at 53.09. On an indoor track. Her best outdoor time was 53.95, 93 last year. But she's jumped 5.7, she can hurdle. She doesn't throw the shot well, but she can run like crazy. But Triton, Minnesota girl that I think when we recruited her, she was 57 mid. Came in kind of a project to be an 800 kid. And then I think her second or third year, she was in the COVID year, so she's in year 5. She's like, can I try the multi? I'm like, if you can hurdle and you can high jump, maybe. So I high jumped in high school. I was like, well, okay. And high jump was pretty good. Picked up on the hurdles pretty fast. So it's been a work in progress. She won our conference meet last year in the heptathlon, and had a really good pentathlon to open the season this year. And then a couple of the guys that I talked about Jake Levine, West Fargo kid. Basically was on our cut list for 3 years. So we can have 50 guys on our roster. We probably start the season with 65, 68 guys, and we have to get down to 50. But he just kept showing potential, and then we tried to make him a decathlete. He was a jumper sprinter. We tried to make him a decathlete. That didn't work. In year 3, finally, I was like, I'm going to teach him how to 400 hurdle. He's trying to do decathlon. The kid can run. I've known him since he was a baby. And he runs like 61. He's getting beat by our girls. I'm like, Jake, you could run sub 50 in the quarter, but his hurdles are like this. So I was like, let's try it one more time. Run 60 again. So then we just went straight 400 training. And last year he ran 46.61 and 20.89. And walk-on kid. Because last year I gave him full tuition because that's all the money I had left, to talk him into coming back, to turning down a really good job. But I don't think, after year 5 for him, I don't think he'd have changed it for the world, having the opportunity to compete one more year. Year 4, he was an All-American on our 4x4 team that ran 305. And when you're working on a 4x4, sometimes it's about like figuring out the mix. Who's leading off? Who runs a good second leg? Who runs a good anchor leg? I always tell them, it's funny because I'll tell our kids they can pick their order. We do the Eskimo relays. It's basically the whole team does 4x4s, except the throwers. And the upperclassmen pick their teams, and then they pick their order. And it's interesting to me to see how they pick the order, because a lot of times the fastest person goes last, but they're so far out of the race that they're not in it. And I always tell the kids, like, if we go to a big meet, I'm leading off my best 2 people, because I want to be in the race come the 3rd leg, and I want the rest of the teams to pull the number 3 and number 4 around the track. So we went from running 309 to 307 by just mixing it up at our conference meet. And then the next week that order ran 305 something, and a week later in Eugene they ran 305.24. So just like the guy that led off, he ran 2 seconds faster than the other guy. It was a big, and then the second guy was, we switched around like 2 or 3 different guys. So there is some coaching involved in track and field, I guess, or strategic planning, I guess I'll tell you that. And then Cody Roeder, a kid from Bemidji. Out of high school, we didn't recruit him, to be honest with you. You guys know Don Larson, head coach at NDSU forever. He sent Don an email. Lars hasn't checked his email since we got email, so he found that out when he got to NDSU. No, Lars is the only guy that was so successful without a computer on his desk, which was, I envy that. I envy when I'd walk by his office and he didn't have his computer and he wasn't spending hours replying to emails. Anyways, he went to a different school, and then he transferred year 2 to NDSU, and ends up being our school record holder. He ran 46.16, not 48.16, his senior year. And Cody's still on our staff as a volunteer, helping us out. He wants to get into coaching, but a great kid. And then I pass over Jacob Rodin, who I talked about, North Dakota small town kid. So there's kind of a common theme here at NDSU. If you look at our roster, we have a lot of underdeveloped, on-tap kids that don't have resources that come to NDSU and make us look really good, because now they have a track and now they have all these resources. So we have a lot of small town kids that have done really well for us. Not that we haven't had big town kids or city kids either, but I think it's just having resources and being able to do certain things with kids has definitely helped us. And then having them, I say 9 months out of the year, our kids come in the fall. We go till May, we go till June with some of them, and then we give them a month or so. Be a kid in the summertime. Go home, work, do things. You're not going to make a professional career in track and field. What you do in the summer, your internships and things like that, that's going to get you a job someday. It's not saying I ran this fast in the 400. That helps. Track and field helps on your resume. Volunteer activities help on your resume, but doing things towards your career, I think, helps. So you get back basically staying fit in the summer. We start back up in August. We get rolling. The kids that did things over the summer, you can tell pretty fast. The kids that didn't, there's very few of them now. There's just so many more resources for them. So, any questions? I know there's a lot of information here. Some good, some bad, right? Well, if you guys have questions, I don't even know where to go to find this online, but you guys probably are on the website. I sent it to Johnny. He said he was going to put it on there. My email's on there. You can also go to our website, shoot me a message. I'd be happy to explain some of this or send you some of the files and things. And good luck this season. We do have some indoor meets up in Fargo. Hopefully we don't host too many of them because the weather will be nice. So you guys can be outside. But if you're looking for indoor meets, Coach Vega is our meet director for high school meets. We are running an elite meet in April, and it's a little different than what you guys see in Minnesota. We're just taking the top 24 entries. North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, whoever wants to enter. Trying to get a bigger meet in Fargo in April. This might be the first year we get to have it, so last year we had to cancel. So thanks again, appreciate the opportunity.